Miss Lee, you're currently muted.
Okay, this is our first time at this, guys, and we are trying to get all of us in here and get going. So we're excited. So good evening as the thunder rolls behind us, and we welcome you to Millsap Middle School's parent meeting. My name is Deanne Lee, and I have the amazing privilege of being superintendent of the best community in Texas. We are Millsap, and I thank you for the engagement that I have seen lately in Bulldog Nation, because it shows that we are all unified in one common goal, and that is we want the best for our kids. Now, that doesn't mean we always agree, but it does mean that we have that commonality of wanting to be premier, of the values that we share, and the integrity that we want to teach to our students. So thank you for the passion that you're showing right now, because we are all working together to do the best we can for our kids. Millsap is blessed with the best board of trustees who puts all of their personal feelings aside and makes the best decisions for our kids every day, thinking about just the students and the staff, and not about where they personally stand on certain things. We're unified in those efforts. And so right now we have a word from our board.
Hello, I'm Dr. Dene Herbel, and I'm privileged to be the school board president for the Millsap ISD Board of Trustees. I'm in my 21st year of service on the board. As we embark in this year, there will be unprecedented challenges for students, teachers, and parents. We on the board would like to share a message with you from our heart about our community, that it is a blessing to be part of the Millsap community, and it is a privilege to be part of this district on the board and as a parent. It's humbling that together with you, we are shaping the future of your students.
It is the board's desire that each student be successful in the short term, but especially in the long run. We know all parents hope for the best for their children as well. In the end, success of each student may look slightly different. College degrees, military service, proficiency in technical skills, a full-time parenting are all noble pursuits. The path of each pursuit will have distinct differences.
As Mr. Burton just indicated, we understand that these noble pursuits will have some very unique differences, but we also believe that these noble pursuits require many of the same virtues: integrity, hard work, dedication, perseverance, self-control, discipline, compassion, respect for others. For this reason, the very first Millsap district value is that we value the development of the whole child.
Of course, we all enjoy winning in athletic contests, the performing arts, and academic achievements. But if a Millsap graduate does not exhibit the core virtues mentioned above, we are concerned that they are not truly prepared for a successful life. Stated another way, we would prefer that our athletic teams lose with integrity than to win by cheating or behaving dishonorably. Don't misunderstand. We aim to train our athletes, artists, and students to win, but the training must be founded upon the core virtues. The board recognizes it is impossible for a public school system to impart these virtues to students alone.
For this reason, the district's second value emphasizes the partnership between the school district and parents/community. The board believes that parents are the primary teacher, mentor, role model for their children. While the district can and should bring valuable academic expertise to the partnership, we as parents will always retain ultimate responsibility for our child's preparation for a successful life. As partners, it is super important that we always remember we are on the same team, striving for the same goal, preparing our children for a successful life.
As a proud parent and a board member, To have an effective partnership, it is critical that the partners accept the responsibility for their share of the burden and that they commit to work diligently to achieve the common goal. It is highly likely somewhere along the journey the partners will encounter a challenge that may lead to the partners viewing an issue from the different perspectives. It is essential that the partners treat each other with respect at all times, especially when the difference of perspectives arrive and create the possibility of a conflict. Another key component of a successful partnership is accountability. If the school district is not living up to its responsibility for every student, parents have the right to raise that red flag in a respectful manner to ensure the district is held responsible to remedy the shortfall.
Likewise, if parents are not living up to their responsibilities, it is the student's overall best interest that the district raise the red flag in a respectful manner and help the parent understand that the district cannot and should not perform the parent's responsibilities. As has been mentioned several times, acceptance of properly divided responsibilities and respectful treatment of all partnership participants is vital to achieving the common goal. Based upon these principles, the board will never ask a parent to be subject to disrespect by a district staff member. That will not be tolerated. Similarly, the board will never ask a staff member to be subject to disrespect by a parent or student. That will not be tolerated. Please remember, character development of our children is paramount. Same team, same goal. The school and parents have different but equally important responsibilities in achieving the goal. Be respectful. Together, we can prepare our children for success.
You see why we are so privileged to have the board that we have, and they are supporting all of us. We also, as a district, promise to support you in this crazy year that we're about to have. And so our Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction, Edie Martin, is going to share with you some of the ways that we will be supporting you in the coming year.
Good evening, and thank you again for coming. As you can see, we have tremendous support from our school board and from Ms. Lee. And again, my name is Edie Martin. I'm the Assistant Superintendent at Millsap ISD. But additionally, I'm a parent. I have a student at Millsap High School. And as a parent, I understand your need and your desire to have a comprehensive understanding of what's fixing to happen in the 2021 school year so that your family or so that my family can make a good decision. We want to provide you with that. We feel like it's our district's responsibility to provide you with all the information you need so that you can make a good decision with your child about how you will educate them in 2021. Although this is not an easy situation, it's very complex. And we know that with the ever-changing nature of the situation, that just adds to the complexity. But we sincerely believe that through this authentic partnership of parents and the school district, through the relationships we've built through trust and respect, that together we can accomplish the common goal. The goal to inspire, develop, educate every Millsap ISD student in a safe environment and help them to become productive, responsible citizens prepared for lifelong success. With those thoughts in mind, Millsap ISD has designed a comprehensive parent information and tutorial website. I would like to take you to that website now and show you some information. As you can see, the website's currently a work in progress. It will be published on August 6th at 9 p.m. And basically what this is it's a resource for parents, and of course students can use this as well. We have in the design stages a student website as well for more information specifically geared towards students. But these resources can be used for students and parents both. You'll notice here that we know when school starts, we'll have some in-person learners, some students who come to school. We also know that we'll have some at-home learners or some students who are learning from home. As we scroll down the page, you'll see that we have a plethora of resources available. For example, every student this year will be issued a Chromebook in which they will take home each night and then bring back. And if you want to learn more about that, this is very appropriate for students learning in school or for families who have students learning at home. You can click on the link to the right when this is published and see a quick video about this information. We also have aligned our learning management systems. So secondary, grades 7 through 12 will be working in Canvas, while our elementary is working, and up through 6th grade is working in Google Classroom. Again, you can click here when this is published to find out more about the learning management system, and so that you can support your student in that. Parent portal, we also are very excited to announce Millsap ISD will have a single sign-on system next year. And so I look forward to that, so you can see more about that. It will be very efficient and very timely. It will help you to quickly access all the tools that your student is learning. But more than anything, these resources are just like our situation. They're very fluid. So we want you to really take note of the help hotline. We had that in the spring, as well as the question forum. And we want you to know we seek your input. We want you to provide us things that if we're not giving you everything you need, let us know what you need. And this page will continue to change and be updated to meet your needs so that your family can continue to make quality decisions for your students. The last piece I want to highlight here is our weekly class agenda. And what this is wonderful for at-home learners, because in a one-page document, the students and the parents will be able to see what's learned each day, what activities are done each day, as well as how attendance will be taken. So this is going to be a wonderful resource, again, when it's published on August 6th. And if you have more information or need different information, let us know and we will continue to alter that. I also want to remind you, if you have not yet registered for school this year, if you go to the homepage, to the www.millsapisd.net, and if you click the first quick link on the online registration, you will come up on this page, and you can see this is a full online registration, which again is new to Millsap this year. If you're a new student, you can click here and register, and a returning student can click here. If you need a little more information about how to do it, we have a wonderful webinar, as well as campus phone numbers where you can talk to a direct person. Today's information was just a highlight of some things that we put in place to support you. We will continue working with you throughout the year to enhance these and make them better for you and your children. In short, my heart today, as all of our district is, our hearts go out. They're heavy for the students, the teachers, the parents, our entire community, our nation. But we're thankful and we're hopeful to serve at Millsap ISD. We know that through our love for one another, we're going to overcome the barriers that lie ahead. And so as we work together during this uncertain time, we want to do our best to support you. Please continue to let us know how that is, and we will do our best to listen to your inputs, to tweak what we need to tweak, make changes and updates, and we want to work in partnership with you to ensure all of our students at Millsap ISD are successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Martin. Y'all have no idea the endless hours that she has worked, and others, of course, as well, but to ensure that every single child is getting the best education that they can. And as she mentioned, she has a child here as well. And so she's going to make sure that it's the very best for each and every child. I do want to take this opportunity to introduce our new school resource officer. We often refer to these as our SRO. And so I think that Mr. Breeze is going to show us a couple of pictures. So you will know who Deputy Gallagher is when you see him around. Deputy Gallagher graduated from the University of Delaware in 2001 with a BA in criminal justice, and he was captain of the university swim team. That's a pretty big deal. He worked in the Santa Clara County Sheriff's Office in California for 17 years before moving to Parker County. He and his wife have 3 children, and he took the SRO position because he feels he can make a difference early in kids' lives. So we welcome Deputy Gallagher. And don't you just love that picture? That tells you a little bit about his personality and how much he loves kids and other kind of kids. On Thursday, after the last parent meeting, a commitment form is going to go out. Previously, you were asked to fill out a survey just to start to give us an idea, but this will be a commitment form. And many of you have asked, is this for the full 6 weeks, no matter what? And the answer to that is yes, because we have to enter students into the system and into a grading period. So even if the governor's orders were to change during that time, then you would fulfill that 6 weeks. But then for the next 6 weeks, you will have an opportunity to fill out a new commitment form. So we ask that you do that on each of your children. And I know it's going to be a quick turnaround, but that will be released Thursday evening. And then we ask that you fill it out, if at all possible, by next Monday. The reason for that is that's going to be less than 2 weeks before school starts. And we need to make our final plans depending on how many numbers we will have online and at school. So let's see, a few other things just as reminders. We are asking that if you are able to help cut down on crowding on the buses. If you are able to bring your child to school and take them home, if you can do that, we would appreciate it. Now, if you're not able to, certainly that's the reason for transportation, and we will be taking many, many protocols on the buses to keep the kids safe. As a reminder, students will need a mask on or a face covering on the bus, but we will be taking several protocols to keep kids safe on our transportation as well. We know how important it is that those wonderful bus drivers with their glowing smiles, that's the first face that kids see in the morning and the last one they see in the evening. I appreciate very much the many, many questions that have been submitted to Questions Corner. So please I apologize, and please understand I'll be reading some of this, but I have done my best to answer as many questions as possible that have been submitted. It's going to be impossible to answer every single one of them, but I will answer in particular the frequently asked questions. But then also several of them are campus specific. And so here in just a little bit, Mr. Clark will be explaining about how things will work at the middle school. And then after the parent meeting, if you still have other questions, please continue to submit those in Questions Corner. I also would like to point out to you, if you're not familiar with the Zoom webinar layout, at the bottom of the screen, there is a little box that says Q&A. And so we would like for you to fill out your questions that don't get answered. We do have Mr. Breeze, our technology director, is monitoring those, and he will try to answer what he can as you ask them. Others, Mr. Clark will try to answer later, and then others we can put in our frequently asked questions document on the website. So to get to some of the questions that you all have asked. So first and foremost, I know that it is very important for you. It's important for us, for our kids to be comfortable when they're at school. And there is concern about students wearing face coverings all day, and that you would like that to be a choice that you and your child make. At this time, it is the governor's orders that masks are to be worn, and I cannot and will not speak for other school districts, but I will absolutely speak for Millsap ISD and the Board of Trustees. And we feel very strongly that we as a school district, our responsibility is that we are instilling the values that don't just hang on a wall, but we live and breathe those values. And that includes that we value ethical behavior and integrity, personal integrity. And the school district is to be that ultimate example of that. And that includes following state law and state guidance. And so we cannot hinder that being followed at this time. But if the governor changes his orders, then certainly we will change our guidelines as well. But we as a school district will uphold the law. I, as a superintendent, will uphold the law. And at this time, that is the law. We will be where it is allowed. We will allow time for masks to be removed for breaks and of course for eating and exercising, band and things like that. But I know that that's something that is the most frequently asked question. And so again, I cannot speak for other school districts, but as for Millsap ISD, we will be upholding the law and the governor's orders. Another common face covering question is, again, whether they can be removed in class if the students are at least 6 feet apart. I will tell you that I personally have submitted this question to the Texas Education Agency, and so have others, and they are reviewing the question, because the commissioner has said that it is not his interpretation of the governor's order that anyone is able to remove a mask indoors at a public building. However, some others feel that the governor's order does say that if there's 6 feet or if there's other barriers, that masks can be removed. So the commissioner has said that he is checking on that, and as soon as we have an answer, we will be providing more guidance on that. Currently, a mask is not required under a face shield. So if you remember, the board has approved that students can wear caps if there's a face shield attached. And again, I've mentioned this several times, but a face shield is my preference, particularly for long periods of time, and it's quite comfortable. And actually, the student face shields came in today. So we will be handing those out for anyone who would want one. And some of you have asked about, well, how will a student keep up with a mask? I know my kid, they're going to lay it down, they're going to lose it, they're going to pick up somebody else's. So someone suggested a lanyard, and you can attach the mask. And by the way, all the kids and staff are going to be getting one of these really cool, reusable, washable masks. And so if you attach it to a lanyard or something, it can be worn around the neck. And then that way, if they're eating or drinking or exercising, then they won't lose that. So that's one idea that has been shared. Let's see. I will be myself personally, I will make the final determination on any requests for an exception to the face covering requirement. If you have a concern for a face covering due to a medical condition, then I would ask that you consult with your physician to make sure that in-person learning is the best for your child's health. Another frequently asked question is the protocol for symptoms and quarantining. So the nurse on each campus will be posting the specific information for each campus, because it will look a little different on each campus. But in general, what will happen if someone, a staff or student, presents symptoms, then they will be isolated until they are able to leave or a parent can come pick them up. That area will be cleaned, and of course, any other students removed from that area. And if the parent grants permission, we will have rapid result COVID tests on campus. Due to our partnership with the health department in Parker County, if you recall, we've been talking about the med pods that we'll be getting. So those will have rapid result COVID tests. Now, these would never be administered without the permission of a parent. We would also have like flu tests and strep tests and things like that. But again, no test like that would ever be administered without parent permission. So anytime that a student would go to what we call Millsap ISD Medical, then a parent would be contacted, and absolutely nothing can be done without parent permission. So we do want you to know that, but it will be very helpful for us to have the rapid test results. So if there is a positive test, then yes, the entire school will be notified. And then of course, if we can determine close contacts, then close contacts will be notified individually. I will tell you that will be very difficult to do in a school, as there's a lot of movement, and then the government actually takes over the tracing, and sometimes that takes a couple of days. But we will, of course, thoroughly be disinfecting and cleaning. There very likely could be the occasion that the entire school would need to learn remotely for a day or two while cleaning is going on, but we will try to limit that time that it would take to clean in that case. We also, the quarantine protocol is very detailed, and it does depend on certain situations. So instead of me going through all the different scenarios right now, it is posted in the COVID area for the back to school 2020-2021 plan. There's a flow chart that does need to be updated a little bit according to some of the CDC guidelines that changed just last week. But the nurses will be extremely involved in that process and in contact with those who are having to be quarantined to let them know that, you know, when they can safely return to campus. So a screener will be filled out by students or parents for students each Monday by 7:30 a.m. And some have asked, you know, how come students aren't having to do a screener every single day? Well, one of the reasons for that is that all of the research has shown that many times children and youth are asymptomatic, meaning they don't show symptoms. They might not have a temperature. They might not feel ill at all. But we are attempting to do that screener at least once a week, and then have parents monitoring throughout the week, of course, if there's any changes, just as you would any other time. And of course, we ask that you please do not send your child to school if they're exhibiting any symptoms. Another reason, though, why it will be once a week is we will actually have a staff member who will determine who all has turned in a screener and who hasn't. And then they will contact the parent and let the parent know that they need to have a screener done for the week. So that will take quite a bit of time as well. That will be a manual process. We are, however, trying out a new app that is going to help us with the screening. So we're going to test that out, and some things might be changing a little bit on that, but we'll let you know. But that is the process right now. Several of you have asked about Zone. Yes, we will be having Zone, our after-school program, and more information will be coming out about that soon. And yes, of course, all the same protocols would be happening at the Zone. Any school-related activity, then the same protocols would be adhered to. UIL and extracurricular information will come directly from sponsors and directors. Yes, your child can bring their lunch. Now, we are asking that you not bring lunch to your child unless they, you know, just have forgotten their lunch or something, but that you not bring outside food as far as, you know, showing up to the office to drop food off, because we do need to limit outside visitors as much as possible. However, as far as just your child bringing their own lunch, then absolutely they can certainly do that. Many of you also have asked if you're going to get to come eat with your child, and we want you to be able to do that. What we ask though, let us get school started, get the routine going, and then we do want to figure out a way to do that. In particular, when the weather cools down a little bit, then certainly we could do much more of that outside. But in the meantime, if we can have some time to get that rhythm going and see if there's a way to figure that out, we do want to do that, but we're going to limit that right now at the very beginning of school. Also taking classes outside. Some of you have asked about, it's just too hot right now. Well, just like in the winter, teachers will be monitoring the weather, and if it's not safe for students to go outside, particularly for long periods of time, then we will not do that. Just as in the winter when it's too cold, we would not do that. So that is just one method that when we can, if we can take students outside, whether it's to have a mask break or whether it's to have a class outside, we won't do that unless it's comfortable, of course, for them to do so. Students do need to bring their own water bottle with a lid and no straw, unless the straw will collapse, inside the bottle. You just don't want anything that, germs could get out. So we are asking though that you certainly do bring your own water bottle. The water fountains will be working, and most of them have been equipped with the filling stations, and they'll be monitored by staff, but not every single watering fountain has been equipped for that yet. But we will certainly make sure that no child goes without water. We will not allow that to happen. Some of the supply lists have included Clorox wipes, and we're fully aware that those are really hard to get a hold of right now. So don't worry about that if you're not able to. But when you can, that would be very helpful. But, during the day, we will be cleaning with a product called Pure and Clean. And this is non-toxic. It is EPA approved, but it brings me a lot of peace of mind because even the smallest of the kids, if they get it on their fingers or something, it is not toxic. So that, like I said, helps me a lot. But several people have asked about teachers being allowed to wear jeans and scrubs now. And the reason for that is because teachers will be heavily involved in the cleaning. Of course, we're all going to be doing this together. But it is also CDC guidelines do recommend that clothing is washed every single day. As soon as you get out and away, that you're supposed to wash your clothing. And so we are allowing the teachers to be more comfortable this year so they can wash their clothes every single day without ruining, good clothes, but then also because they will be involved in so much cleaning as well. I appreciate that many of you have asked about our staff because you realize that this is an extremely stressful time and they will be carrying a double load. So first of all, thank you for the care that you have shown for them. And I want to assure you that, first of all, this is the most dedicated staff I have ever seen in my 31 years. They are relentless. That's our word this year, but it's true. They have been relentless in making sure that your child isn't just learning, but they're also loved. They want to make sure that each and every child knows how much they love them. And so I want you to know that we're making accommodations for the staff, especially for the teachers, so that they can have time either built into their schedule or at other times when they can work on their online learning and meet with the remote students. So we are making accommodations and preparations for that. We have also provided extensive training this summer. We will provide time at the beginning of the year so that they can prepare those lessons and get ready. We are also adding additional personnel so we can try to relieve some of the responsibilities that staff will be asked to perform. So we are excited to continue the long-standing relationship that we have together. I know these are difficult times, and I know that we are all struggling with frustrations and things that we don't understand. But please know, we are listening. We are trying to make adjustments as much as we possibly can within the law. And I hope that you saw last spring that we did involve you. We have involved you every step of the way this summer. And no, we can't include every single decision or every single parent in every single committee and every single decision, but we are definitely talking to hundreds and trying to include opportunities for you to ask the questions, such as through Questions Corner and things like that. So we are trying to listen and adjust as we can. We know, as Ms. Martin said at the beginning of the year, it's not going to be perfect, and we will adjust to continue to make it the best we can be. All of our administrators have worked tirelessly to prepare for this year and to make sure that the seamless instruction is excellent, whether your child is at home or at school. So at this time, I would like to introduce Mr. Jeff Clark, who is principal of the middle school, and he is going to let you know about the details at Millsap Middle School.
Thank you, Mrs. Lee. And yes, I am Jeff Clark. I'm the principal at the middle school. And to start off, let me just say thank you for taking the time on this Monday evening to tune in to this webinar. And I want you to know that my ultimate goal for what I'm about to say is to provide you with as much information as possible for you to be able to make an informed and appropriate decision for what is best for your child and your family. And if that's what we accomplished tonight, then we have accomplished what we set out to do. So in doing so, what I plan to do is I want to paint a picture for you tonight. And that is, I want to detail what it would look like for a student who is learning on campus. What would their day look like instructionally? And what would it look like for safety, keeping them safe? And then secondly, I want to paint a picture for what it will look like for that student who is learning at home. So hopefully I'll be able to provide enough information between those two different scenarios, two different choices, that allows you to make that decision at the appropriate time later this week. So where did this plan come from? And I will say this plan has been in the making since we got out of school on May 22nd. And what I mean by that is almost immediately after the last day of school, we got together several different committees. Principals met with students from their campus, we met with parents, and we met with staff members. And we basically asked them, based upon the online learning from March 23rd after spring break until the last day of school, what went well and what didn't go well. And that was our preparation for not knowing what this school year would look like. But at least we had that information to begin with. And then it almost became a little bit of a waiting game because we had to wait on guidance from the state. And so we've gotten to the point where it was in early July, when we had that previous information gleaned from June, that the state finally released some information for us on July 7th so that we could begin to work on that plan. Now I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you tonight about what it looks like for on-campus learners and at-home learners. It is a fluid plan. And the reason as a fluid plan is really twofold. Number one, as the state releases information to us and guidance, that information changes, sometimes from day to day. And so as you begin to embark on a plan and set it in place, and the guidance changes, therefore the plan has to change in some instances. And so there's one reason why I tell you this is a fluid plan. The second reason is, Mrs. Lee had mentioned to you that, we are going to need a commitment from every single student, from their parents, as to what choice they are making, whether that's in school learning or at home learning. Now, so our plan, the plan for the middle school and any campus in the state of Texas, is also dependent on those commitments. How many students are here and how many are at home? How can we safely and appropriately accommodate the kids here at school while maintaining the same level of rigor and instruction for those students that are at home? So that's a big factor in this plan, is how many kids are here? So, we do have some data from the survey that we were sent out to the parents, and those that responded were able to make some projections. And so the plan as it is today is based upon those projections and our current status of information and guidance from the state. The things that I can tell you for sure, these will not change. And that first of all, as Mrs. Lee referred, we're going to love your kids. We would not be in the kid business if we didn't love being around kids. And so that is a commitment I will make to you. Secondly, we were going to put safety first. And all of previous years that I've been here, the safety was mainly about keeping your kids safe from outside harm. And that is still of the utmost of our thinking and our planning. But COVID and the pandemic has brought about some new protocols to ensure that safety. So we're not doing away with any one safety measure to meet the others. It's just adding them together to make sure that everyone is safe. I'll also guarantee you that we are going to do our best every single day to keep not only the students, but the staff members healthy. Now, I've always said before a pandemic, my ultimate goal is to send your kids back home to you at the end of the day, at least in as good a condition as you dropped them off. And that will still be in place. I will tell you and guarantee you that the students and the staff members are going to learn this year. They may be learning different things and at different levels, but we're all going to be learning. And then lastly, we are committed to growing your student academically, mentally, socially. We are committed to that. We will not all grow at the same pace or rate, but we will all grow. And those are commitments that I will make to you and stand behind those. There is nothing fluid about those commitments. Now, how we go about doing that, okay, here's where we're at right now. So what I would like to start with is those students who choose to be at school. What does that day look like? Well, the first thing, and I will combine safety and instruction as I go through what that day looks like. We will have multiple entrances open to our building. The front door, the doors that lead to our cafeteria, and then the doors in the back that go to where the buses load and unload, so that students can enter the building from 3 main entry points, so that we're not having a bottleneck or a congregation of massive students in close proximity as they enter the building. So we do want to spread those out. And parents, I would encourage you, if you drop your students off at school, to select different locations. Let's not all come in the front door. At every entrance point, there will be hand sanitizing stations for kids to sanitize their hands as they come in the building. Now, a departure from years past to start our day. In years past, we have asked students to report to a common area. The last few years, that has been in our rock gym. And then from the rock gym, they would go to tutorials or they would wait for release until first period. This year, we're asking that when students arrive on campus, that they go directly to their first period class. Now, there will be some students that will want to get breakfast, and those students can still pick up their breakfast in the cafeteria. And then, but when the school doors open at 7:35, we would ask that they go directly to first period. We will certainly want to eliminate any time that we're massing students together. So to answer a question was, will students get their schedule before the first day of school? Absolutely. If we're not going to be able to meet together as a student body before the first day of school, our intention is to not only mail those schedules home, but also provide a map with the schedule. And of course, teachers being available throughout the building to assist students to get to their location, not only first period, but throughout the day. So our students have arrived, they've had hand sanitizing stations, they've gone directly to their first period to eliminate, unnecessary interaction. Then they will start their class. And I will tell you, and this will apply to all classes, there will be cleaning product in every single classroom. And it will be expected and the responsibility of the students in conjunction with their teacher to clean their area, their desktop, at the beginning of every class. And they will also do so again at the end of class. Now, obviously, if I've cleaned my desk at the end of first period and I go to second period, theoretically and in plan, that desk should have been cleaned just a few minutes prior. But what we want to ensure is that in case, for whatever reason, it wasn't cleaned prior to my arrival, or if something happened from when it was cleaned, that it is cleaned again. So we will ask students to assist in the cleaning their area when they enter a classroom and when they exit a classroom. Now, during the instructional time for those students that are here, in many ways, it's going to be very similar to what school has been in the past. They will have a teacher in the classroom to provide instruction. They will have teachers in the classroom to check their understanding, to fill in gaps, and to answer questions immediately in real time. And all types of instructional activities that have always occurred within schools will continue here at school. And then one of the common questions you may have is about what about passing periods, transitioning from one class to another. And I will tell you right now, I'm not exactly sure, because a lot of that will depend upon the amount of students that we have here in the building. Now, some plans that I have in my mind that may be implemented, dependent upon the numbers, is we may release kids by grade level at staggering times, so there's never more than one grade level at a time. It may be that based upon the numbers, we're able to release the kids as normal and that they travel directly from class to class. Almost think about it like your highway. We've got a yellow line down the middle and we travel down the right-hand side. That's where we drive. And just like our students, they will be requested and required and expected to walk on the right side of the hallway. We will not be issuing lockers this school year. Students will be encouraged to carry their supplies in a backpack from classroom to classroom. And well, first of all, that there's a safety concern. Lockers obviously or get brushed up against, and they can be contaminated unintentionally. And so we want to reduce that unwanted exposure if there is any. Secondly, they congregate students in areas, which not only bring students together in close proximity, but it also can cause a barrier or a hindrance to that free flow of traffic transitioning from class to class. So for both the safety reason and the transition reason, we will not be issuing lockers this school year, at least for the foreseeable future. And then, so you can see that kids will transition pretty normally. Their classes will be like they have been in the past. Now let's talk about lunch. Lunch, again, is based upon the number of students that are here at school. Based upon those projections that I talked about earlier, I foresee that we can take the lunches, we have 2 lunches at the middle school, and actually divide each lunch into 2 separate groups. So for example, a lunch is all of our 6th grade and a few 7th grade classes. We would take those numbers and split them in half. And so for the first week of school, half of those students would eat in the cafeteria. In the cafeteria, they will be spread apart so they can safely take off their mask to eat their lunch, but maintain that 6-foot distance between the eating areas. The other half of the students that are in that first lunch, they would report to the media center or the boardroom where they would eat their lunch. We plan on having a serving line in both locations, so we're not massing the kids into the cafeteria and collecting their food and half of them leaving. We think that we can most effectively and efficiently serve the kids that are in the media center by having the prepackaged hot lunches in the media center where we can process payment through the computer and get them their food as quickly as possible so they have as much of that lunchtime to eat their lunch and to visit and socialize with their friends appropriately from an appropriate distance. So there are no plans at this time for have students eating in their classroom. They would be in the cafeteria or the media center. And then even with that, the plan would be to flip and rotate those two groups so that if I'm in the cafeteria one week eating my lunch, the next week I would be in the media center. And so that would continue to change. Now, as the weather permits, and if appropriate supervision is available, then it is possible we could break into 3 groups. And in addition to the cafeteria and the media center, there could be an outside area. But right now, that is not a definite. That's just a possibility in the future. But with appropriate supervision and appropriate eating locations. So, but that is something that is in our minds to provide just more choice and a more comfortable setting for our kids. Now, moving into the at-home learners. So their day is going to look a little bit different. Now, as far as the instruction, the level of rigor, what they're working on as far as content, that's going to be the exact same as those kids that are at school. The difference will be is rather than sitting in the classroom and listening to the teacher provide instruction, they would be watching a pre-recorded video that the teacher has created or utilized from another source that is covering the content at the same depth and rigor and level as what the students in class are getting from the teacher. So the instruction will not be the same, or will be the exact same, but what will not be the same is that ability to stop the teacher and ask a question. But the instruction itself will be the same. The activities that the students at home are asked to do will be at the same complexity as the students in school. It may look a little different. Like, for example, if the students in school, as part of their learning continuum, are asked to have a class discussion led by the teacher, that's happening in real time. But the kids at home are still going to have a class discussion, but that may be through questions and discussion amongst one another online. But the discussion, the content will be the exact same. Now, with at-home learners, there's going to be, I'm going to approach it from 2 different standpoints. First of all, our core classes, math, science, English, and social studies. Those students, as part of the requirement for being an at-home learner, is there will be 2 set times on 2 set days that they will be required as part of their grade and attendance to check in, not just check in, but to have a face-to-face online meeting with their teacher. And that's just not a, hey, how you doing? I'm glad you're here. Thanks for checking in. It will be specific follow-ups to work that's been presented. The teacher may call upon the students. If it was a math class, please tell me your answer to question number 1 and tell me the process that you got to that answer. And let's look at your process together. And if it's right, we talk about why it's right. And maybe if there was a mistake in the process, we stop, and that is a reteaching moment. But that time, those mandatory check-ins, that requirement, is not a time to teach. The teaching occurs in those instructional videos. It's a time to reinforce the instruction and to reinforce the learning and to help them when they're at home. In addition, and I'm still talking core classes, for the 2 mandatory check-ins, to student-teacher interactions, the teacher will have regular office hours where they would be available to remotely help the students answer questions or provide clarification if needed. So in core classes, math, science, English, and social studies, at-home learners will be required to have a face-to-face session with a teacher 2 days a week. For their elective teachers, they will have a mandatory face-to-face conference with their teacher 1 day a week. As a school, we will have a set schedule for the days and times that those mandatory meetings will occur, as well as the regular office hours. Now, at this time, I cannot tell you that 7th grade math is going to meet on Tuesday and Thursday at 11 o'clock. I can tell you that 2 days a week at a certain set time, it will be mandatory. But scheduling those right now is also highly dependent on how many of you commit to the at-home learning as well as the on-campus learning. But once those numbers are known for the 6 weeks, we will post those times and days of the week that the required meetings are and the regular meetings are to occur. Students that are at home, I want to reiterate, are required to participate in the educational process equally as those students are at school. Students at home will be required to do something every single day. That may be instructional videos and a discussion. It may be instructional video and activities. It could be referencing the instructional video from the prior day or previous day, and then a new activity to grow and enhance the learning from the previous day. But there will be expectations of at-home learners every day in every class in order to get credit and to receive their grade as a student at Millsap Middle School. Now, what about electives or extracurricular activities for those students that are at home? Let me start with 6th graders. 6th graders do not participate in extracurricular activities as 6th graders. The only activity that they do have an opportunity to participate in is band. And 6th grade is the year where they learn to read music and play an instrument. And because of the complexity of that at-home 6th grade learners will not be able to participate in band while they are at home. For 7th and 8th graders who are at-home learners and who have been in band, they will be in the band class. However, that will require those students to come to school either after school or on weekends for several hours a week to work with the band directors. I do not know a specific day of the week or times of the week to convey to you at this time. However, I can tell you that to participate as an at-home learner in band, that will require times that you must come to school. Now, athletics, and this is equally to boys and girls athletics in 7th and 8th grade. At-home learners are eligible and able to participate in the athletic program at Millsap Middle School. Girls athletics is first period of the day. Boys athletics is 7th period or the last period of each day. So let's start with the girls. If I'm an at-home learner and I wish to be in athletics. It will be a requirement and expected of you to be in the athletic period on a daily basis. Now, some athletes will be also, girl athletes will be participating in a seasonal sport. We start with volleyball and cross country. So those girls would need to be here for the practice time, which occurs about between 6 and 6:30 in the morning until the end of first period, which will be at 8:50 or 8:55, depending on the schedule we're on that day. And so the expectation for the parents of at-home girl athletes is they are dropped off at the appropriate time and picked up promptly at the end of first period. We do not have the staff nor the facilities to supervise those students. And if they wish to participate, they need to be in the athletic period on a daily basis, and they need to be picked up at an appropriate time, which in this case is promptly at the end of first period. For boys athletics, being the last period of the day, and I'm only speaking of at-home learners, yes, they are able to participate in athletics. And just like the girls, they are expected to be here in the athletic period, which begins at 2:35. Now, just the opposite of what I referred to in the girls, that they need to be picked up promptly at the end of the period, boys need to be here when the period starts. Now, what I mean by that is, just like I do not have the staff to supervise girls if they're not picked up promptly, I do not have staff members to supervise boy athletes that are dropped off at 2 o'clock. So what we are asking of parents, if you're bringing your at-home learner to participate in athletics, they are to remain in your car outside of the locker room until a coach comes out of the locker room for those students to exit your car and enter the locker room, and then to be picked up promptly at the conclusion of practice, whether that's at the end of the period at 3:30 or the end of the practice time, which would be later and announced by the coaches. Now, I will tell you, with at-home learners that are participating in band, girls athletics, or boys athletics, and I'll use the boys athletics as an example because they were waiting in the car for the coach to signal them to come in. From the time that they exit your car until they enter the building and are instructed to do so otherwise, they must wear a face covering. And then once the physical activity begins and is appropriate, then of course those will be removed during physical activity. The same for the girls in the beginning of the day. When they are dropped off, they are expected and required to have a face covering on as they enter the building and until they begin their activity. And band would be the same way. When they're brought to school to practice or receive instruction from their band directors, they are expected to wear a face covering from the time they exit the vehicle until they get into the location and begin their practice. So I hope that will answer some of the questions you have about at-home learners wishing to participate in athletics and other extracurricular activities. Now, I do know that there's been a couple of questions that I will attempt to answer. And while I'm pulling that back up, please know that if you have additional questions about athletics, please email Coach Johnson. We have spoke today, and the plan that I have relayed to you is the athletic plan for those that are at-home learners. But if you have additional questions, then you would need to email Coach Johnson. If you have some additional questions about band at this time, then I would encourage you to email Mr. Jeff Johnson, our band director, and they can answer those questions specifically. So the next question I have is about supply list. We intend to release a supply list for all students by the end of this week. And as I release, post it upon our website, of which we will also send notification through at least our Facebook, and if not email, to let you know that that supply list has been posted for this school year, and that you may begin to mark those things off your list. How will absences be counted, and will there be an attendance policy? Yes, absolutely. Absences are counted, and they count equally for students that are at school and at home. Now, with at school kids, that's very common. We've done that every year we've been in school. The kids sitting in your desk, in your classroom, they're present. With at home learners, it's a little bit different because we are following an asynchronous model. So students that are at home have 3 ways to show that they are present. The first one is to make progress in the learning management system. So in 6th grade, that's Google Classroom. In 7th and 8th grade, that's Canvas. Now, making progress is much more substantial than I logged in, looked at what was there, and logged out. Making progress is I'm doing what is required of me. I watched the video, I did the activity, I participated in the online discussion. Second way that they are absent or present is that they turn in their assignment for the day. Now, granted, that looks a little bit different for an at-home learner than an at-school learner, because if I'm at school, I may turn it into the tray. I may turn it into the teacher. If I'm at home, well, my math class might have been a second period, but I turned that in at 7 o'clock at night. Well, you turned in the assignment that day. On that day, that meant you were present. And then the third, of course, is that face-to-face interaction with the teacher. And if we're making that face-to-face interaction in those mandatory 2 times a week for core, once a week for electives, then there's an opportunity to be present. But yes, attendance will be counted and absences will count towards the state requirements of being in attendance 90% of the days for the semester. And so that will not change, and the state does not allow us to disregard attendance laws during this time. Is it possible for middle school band students who are at-home learners to be able to participate in the actual band period? That is a question to refer to Mr. Jeff Johnson. I don't know the answer to that, and so I don't want to speak on his behalf and tell you something erroneously. So please email Mr. Johnson so that he can give you the most accurate information. Children's schedules, again, we will mail those home before the first day of school, but I want you to realize developing schedules right now is solely dependent on your commitments and the spacing requirements that we have. I know that I've taken the square footage of every room in this building, and I know what we can fit in there and what we can't. And I know what we can fit in there at a 6-foot distance and what does not allow us to. But again, that's all dependent upon how many students are here. So students by no means are set in stone at this time, because until we have those commitments, which go out Thursday night, can we not finalize schedules. But as soon as we're able to get those commitments and finalize the schedules, we will send those home and make them available immediately so that you have that information. If a student is sent home due to symptoms to isolate, will they be given the choice to do at-home learning during that time to keep them from getting attendance absence against them? Yes, obviously, if a kid is home for whatever reason, they will have access to the remote learning. Because in 7th and 8th grade, it's all going to be within Canvas anyways. So whether I'm a student here at school or a student learning remotely, I will be able to access that. Again, the key difference is going to be, am I getting the live real-time instruction from the teacher in the classroom, or am I getting a recorded version? But the instruction is still the same. The rigor is still the same. The activity may be slightly different just because of sometimes the differences between technology and learning at home and those that are learning in a classroom. But obviously, if a kid is at home and feels well enough, they would have the ability to participate in the learning just like as if they were here. So I think that we have answered most of the questions that have been posted right now. Mrs. Lee or Mrs. Martin, I hope you're still with me. And is there anything that I might have left out that you would like me to clarify, or any additional questions from parents?
I'm texting with Miss Marbut, our nurse. Can we email a copy of the shot records, or do we have to bring the copy to the school? Did you answer that and me not hear it?
I did not. I think it popped up after I finished.
Okay.
Of course, you may always email a copy of your shot records. You may have your doctor's office email it to us, or they can fax it to us. Our fax number is located on the website. But email, you can always email me the records, or the nurse, or Ms. Borhan, anyone in the front office, and we're going to make sure that we forward it on to the nurse, or we print it off and hand it to the nurse so she has your shot records, most current shot records for our records. And which reminds me, when I mentioned the fax number, reminded me to inform the parents. During the shutdown to end last school year, we had a helpline that was available, and it was very active, and it was a good resource for our parents and our kids to reach out to one telephone number at the district. And that number was 940-682-3100. And so we have been in the process this summer of changing over our phone system. And so a lot of the phone numbers here are changing. But in order to make it as simple as possible for parents, students, community, and staff, is try to simplify a main contact number for each campus, in addition to all the numbers for each individual classroom or office. And so building upon that help hotline number that ended in 3100, then each campus will have a very similar number in progressive and systematic order. So for example, they will all start with our local prefix and area code 940-682. The helpline is 3100. The elementary is 3110. The middle school will be 3120. And the high school 3130. Now, the website is not totally up to date, but I wanted to share that will be, there used to be a number that ended in 4994, and that went to a calling selection system, push 1 for the middle school, etc. This will go directly to the front office at each campus, or the hotline if you're dialing the 3100 number. Okay, next question is, if my kid is sick but doesn't have COVID, will they have to have a COVID test to come back? And that's a question that is hard for me to answer. It really bases more on the symptoms that the child is experiencing, or the staff member, as to whether we would need to have proof of a COVID test. It has more to do with the symptoms of whatever individual is experiencing in their illness.
Would you like me to interject, Mr. Clark?
Yes, ma'am.
So what you have said is correct. Let me, whoops. there we go. Sorry. What you said is correct. If you do look at the protocols, then if it is a COVID symptom, then there would be quarantining for 14 days. But if either they test negative or if they have a note from a doctor saying, let's say it's a sinus infection, something that determines it's not COVID, they would be allowed to come back, or if they test negative. But if it's not a COVID-related symptom, then as Mr. Clark said, that would be treated differently. So in other words, just because someone is ill doesn't mean they have to quarantine for 14 days. It would depend on what the symptoms were. But there also are a couple of things that can be done even if it is a COVID symptom. So a test, or if a doctor determines that it's something else, then they could return. Can I also, so Jess, to your question, you said I may have missed it. Will they have to wear a mask during class or just during passing periods? So yes, I did address that at the very beginning, but that's certainly perfectly fine to ask again. We have submitted that question to TEA, Texas Education Agency. So the guidance comes, of course, we have the president, we have the governor, we have the Texas Education Commissioner, county officials, and then all of that comes down to us. We also, though, have the CDC guidelines. And so the Texas Education Agency, the commissioner, indicated that he did not believe that the governor's executive order allowed for masks to be removed inside a public building, even with 6 feet of distance. However, some have questioned that because a strict interpretation of the governor's executive order says that if 6 feet or some type of barrier is possible, then they could be removed. So we have asked for clarification for that, and we have not gotten that answer yet. And when we do, we certainly will include that in an update. I know that that would make a huge difference to everyone. I do want you to know, though, that we are going to build in what I'm calling mask breaks, face covering breaks. Just like we have brain breaks, our brains get tired, and so we need a break. Same thing with mask breaks. We are going to try to be creative and think of things that we can still say within guidelines, but yet give kids that little bit of rest. For instance, if it's a nice day, there's different guidelines outside. We have a little more flexibility so that if kids are spread apart, then they can take their masks off for a while. Then of course, while they're eating, if they have band, athletics, PE, those times as well. So as soon as we have more guidance on that, then we will be updating you.
And Mr. Clark, I wanted to add, there was a question about registration. So it said, I completed the online registration through Parent Portal at the end of the last school year. Do I need to complete anything else? So first off, thank you for everyone for completing that online registration. If your student is a returning student and they completed that registration this summer or starting in May, then that part is done. What we need is the commitment form that will be coming out later this week to commit to at-home learning or in-person learning. Other than that, everything else has been completed and is done.
Okay. Looking to see if there's anything else. Miss Ludwig said that Mr. Johnson just responded, Mr. Band Johnson, and said that middle school band can participate during the normal band time for 7th and 8th grade on campus.
And if that is Mr. Johnson's wishes for 7th and 8th grade band, then the same thing would apply to those students that are in athletics, that they would need to be dropped off at the beginning of class and wait in the parking lot until Mr. Johnson or Mr. Rasco welcome the students out of their cars into the building and wearing a face covering in the building, from the car to the building, to the classroom until they're ready to begin their activity, and then picked up promptly at the end of the class when they're done. And then to, again, just in the opposite, once they're done with their activity in the band room, they would wear their face covering to exit the building and back to your car to go home.
Mr. Clark, do we know when the 7th grade band period is yet?
It's 6th period, so that's 1:35 to 2:30.
Okay.
And I will tell you, that we're actually going to have 2 separate bell schedules this year. And the primary reason for that is that, and they're only a 5-minute difference, but we are creating some flex time after lunch. And, parents that are returning to the school, that we traditionally have always had tutorial times before school. And so one of the things by asking students to report directly to their first period, yes, they can get some extra time with their first period teacher, but that does preclude them from going to other classes. So we're going to utilize that flex time in the afternoon where we can provide some extra help and instruction and intervention during that time in different content areas. And also it'll be used, we're in the process of creating a makerspace. And so that will be available to students under supervision and with proper safety, just like everything else that we'll be doing, to utilize the wonderful things that we've been able to purchase over the summer to create that makerspace, such as robotic kits, 3D printers, audiovisual equipment, binding machines, just some really cool stuff that kids can go in and hands-on and display their learning and to problem solve and be creative. And there's lots of students I know that would like to take advantage of that. But I also am realistic in using that time for instruction, because we missed a lot of instruction last year. And that's of no one's fault. No one is to blame. But the truth of the matter is, we still missed a lot. We left here on March 13th, and here it is almost 5 months later, and we still haven't had students on campus. And I'm not going to pretend that I can make up for that lost time in 30 minutes a day. But I also know that I can provide that time to make the efforts in growing your students. And that's one of the promises I made you. And that's the intent.
Mr. Clark, he asked, how will we submit schedule requests?
Well, that would depend. Returning students, that was all sent out to students before school ended and was sent back, and we inputted all their requests, and that's how we're building their schedules, is based upon their request. Now, as with any schedule request, first and foremost, we're going to build the schedule based upon academics. And then we're going to take the request for electives and we're going to fit it in based upon their academic schedule. So most of those have already been taken care of. Now, new students that have not had that opportunity yet, Miss Cindy Holder, our counselor, will reach out to them to talk about their schedule request for electives and for math and English, whether they want to be in honors or regular. And honors is replacing pre-AP in name, but the content between what was pre-AP and is now honors is the same. So example, for math in 6th grade, honors math, we'll take 6th grade math and half of 7th grade math in one class period. 7th graders will take all the second half of 7th and all of 8th during 7th grade. And then of course, 8th graders that have gone through that path will be in algebra in 8th grade. So if you have not heard by the end of this week from Ms. Holder and you're a new to Millsap student, then please reach out to her through phone or email so that she can get your requests and honor them the best that we can.
And then Ms. Kia also asked about bus transportation to and from school, how that will work. And Ms. Key, I'm not sure if you're asking about like COVID protocols or if you're asking about schedule. As far as protocols, there will be, so students will have to wear a face covering on the bus. Now, even when the governor's order changes, because of the close proximity of a bus, face coverings will still need to be worn. Now, we will have the windows cracked to allow for more ventilation. There will be the hand sanitizer machines at the entrance when you first get on, and students will be asked to use that. And then as well, you know, when you get off. And then we will try to make as much space as possible on the buses to keep kids apart. But obviously, depending on how many that we end up having, we only have so many buses and so many bus drivers. But we are, like families will sit together. And so that will help conserve some space. And then as I said at the beginning, we are asking people that if it's possible, that they can bring their own children to school and home, if that's possible. And so that in essence is the protocols. So I'm not sure if that was your question or if it's scheduling. So Mr. Clark, you might want to just touch on scheduling in case that was the question.
Well, as far as the students who are at school learners, transportation as far as time-wise will be very similar to it has in the past. Of course, transportation will reach out to those parents and let them know their approximate pickup time and location and approximate drop-off time and location. If you're asking about at-home learners participating in like athletics or band, we're not providing transportation for those at-home learners who want to participate in something at school. So hopefully between Mrs. Lee and myself, maybe we answered your question. If we did not, I mean, feel free to reach out to me tomorrow and
Okay.
maybe I can answer more specifically.
She said that we did. Thank you, Ms.
Okay,
Lee.
good.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's nearly 7. Now we have, you know, committed to stay on if you have more questions. Currently, all the questions have been answered. Are there other questions you would like to ask? We don't want to leave anyone high and dry. I'll show again. Somebody did ask about the mask again, so I'll show that. I think they're really cool. And if you can, I don't know if you can see or not, but there's even real close, there's still little M's in here, but I think that's really neat. And it's very comfortable and it's washable. And then the shields came in today. Now it's not green, that's the covering on there. But like I said, my shield, I've worn quite a bit. Don't you love my Millsap sticker? But it's quite comfortable. I wear it a lot, especially, you know, when I have an all-day meeting. Okay, couple more questions popped up. We submitted a transfer application but haven't heard back. When should we expect a decision? Mr. Clark?
You should hear from me by the end of this week as far as transfers. And make sure that when you say submitted, that it was emailed directly to me so that I have all the required documentation with the application so that we can begin to process that, which of course is the transfer application itself. Most recent copy of STAR scores, which obviously is not last year. It would be the prior years from before last year. Attendance, most recent report card generally is on, the attendance is on the most recent report card. And lastly, a handwritten letter by the student to me stating why they want to attend Millsap Middle School instead of the school where they reside. And so we need all of those documents to move forward. And so if you haven't sent that directly to me, please do so. And if you did send it somewhere else, just send me an email and let me know where it's at. I'll see if I can track it down, but at least I'll have a contact information for you to let you know what I have or do not have to move forward with that.
Off topic, but do you know if the middle school has yearbooks from last year left over?
Actually, yes, we just got those. And so I worked on today trying to set up a time that we could facilitate picking those up. And so I'll be sending out an email tomorrow. Plan will probably be Thursday with some set hours and with the details and guidelines of how that will work. It'll generally be something like you'll drive up to the front entrance, remain in your car, call the school with the student's name, and we will deliver that out to you for you to take with you. And so I plan to have one day this week, and then another day next week. And then, of course, when school begins, they would be available for pickup. But yes, we have received those and we're getting ready to distribute those.
What time does school start?
First period begins at 8 a.m. The doors will open at 7:35.
One question was asked, based on the results of the earlier survey, roughly, what is the percentage of parents who indicated they would do at home versus in person? I mean, I'll tell you, it was approximately 30%, but the deal is that we only had about half turned in. So we don't know that that's really a very accurate, percentage. So that's one of the reasons why we're needing that commitment form, because that would make a big difference, because usually when one parent submits, they submit for multiple kids. So, it's hard to say that is representative of 50%, because that might not necessarily be the case, because we have several parents, with several students. And so one survey would really throw that off. Let's see, if distance learners do not have internet access at home, Mr. Breeze, are you still on? Would you like to answer that one? This is our amazing, and I do mean amazing, technology director, Jon Breeze.
So yes, we will have internet hotspots that are available to be checked out to students who will be learning from home who might not have internet. Last year, we got 40 hotspots in the spring, and we checked those out as much as possible, and we had a lot of students utilizing them. There were a small number of students, very small number, that could not utilize the hotspot because it uses a Verizon signal. And so if there was no cell coverage at their house, then they weren't able to utilize it. As a result of that, we looked this summer and are purchasing a handful of hotspots that use a different carrier, so that hopefully between the two, we'll be able to cover everyone that needs internet access at home.
Okay, thank you. What time will sixth grade be starting, and will the bus pick up and drop off? So Mr. Clark, I know you answered a minute ago, but did you answer bus pickup? I don't remember.
I did. I just said that transportation would contact them before school begins. That's always been our normal procedure. The transportation department contacts the parents to let them know an approximate pickup time and drop-off time. And so I don't foresee any reason that would change, that transportation would contact the parent.
Okay. This is a very good question, if they all are. But if there is not enough kids going to school, will it all be online? So I will tell you that we are in constant contact with Dr. Welch. He is the county health authority. We also, because of our med pods, he is actually our doctor. Now they may be hiring another doctor, because you can imagine the volume as school starts for him alone to be handling, all the schools. So if you've looked at the back to school plan, you will see that there is a, I believe it's yellow, orange, and red. And so currently we are in red, but of course school hasn't started. We have been extremely fortunate and blessed that during Edge, we're one of the few programs that never had to close because of a positive case. The 1 week extra that we did stay closed, that was just at UIL's request statewide that people consider that. We were only scheduled 2 days that week anyway, because 2 of those were UIL no can practice days. So anyway, that is because of, diligent protocols and sanitizing and all of that. But yes, that possibility exists that there is a tipping point. And to be honest with you, it's not a set number or a determined amount. I have talked to Dr. Welch personally. Of course, the superintendents in Parker County have regular calls with the county, but also, TEA and others. But one of the questions that we submitted or talked about is that we very likely we would have more likelihood of closing due to how many staff are quarantined, not even necessarily positive cases, but just quarantine, because at some point, even if a teacher is able to continue their teaching duties at home during a quarantine, or they could even be sick and not be so ill that they're not able to teach, so they could continue teaching, but yet we still need substitutes and others to be at school with the face-to-face kids, of course. And so there is a real possibility that if we're not able to get enough substitutes or paraprofessionals, that could be difficult. So as far as, is there a set number of cases? Not necessarily, but anytime, every single case, whether it be, quarantine or a positive case, we will be in constant touch with Dr. Welch, and they understand that, let's say, for instance, for staff, that would probably be somewhere for us around 10%. Now, that would depend, of course, is that district-wide or is that on one campus? So that's why it's hard to set a specific number. And then same thing for positive cases. If there's one, certainly we could still easily have school. We notify everyone, and of course parents would make that decision whether they feel comfortable with their student coming or not. But as far as an exact number, we don't know that yet, but absolutely that possibility exists that it could become severe enough that everyone, would go online. I will tell you though, that does take, and it takes a declaration from a county authority. We only have the authority to stay completely closed and fully remote only for 5 days. On day 6, if there is not a declaration by a county official, then we do not receive funding on the 6th day. So now the governor certainly could come on and say that all learning would be remote, but a county official can do